All right, welcome again. We've just gone 3 minutes past 12. I think hopefully we've got quite a few people in and you can see what's going on, which is important. Welcome to our virtual lunch, probably another one in our series. If you are just joining us for the first time, if you can mute your lines, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much. My name's Paul Jantz. I look forward to sharing some really important information with you over the next 45 minutes or so. It's not too late. It's never too late to grab a glass of wine or a cup of tea if that's what you'd like to do as well. Look, we created this series at the start of last year, I suppose. We've been running for close to 24 months now when COVID first hit, and it's a funny thing where it still continues to be really popular. And I spoke to even a firm this morning who said, yeah, look, over the last 12 months in particular, we've listened to everything you've said, and we've got our top 10 that we're going to be implementing for 2022. So again, we hope to bring all of you that have joined us again, just something that you can take away that, again, if there's some sort of change mechanism that you'd like to bring into your firm for the 2022 calendar year, please use this. And that's where these educational little webinars are all about. Today's a very interesting topic, and I spoke to both these guys. Let me just stop sharing. That might be better as well as I admit a few more in. So I'll stop sharing, and we've got a fair few people on our screen here. Still more coming in with this auto that I can't get going. So our guest, let me get to our guest. I've got Adam Dierhelhuis, and he's the director of O'Connells in Brisbane. Plus I've got James Rose, the founder of Content Snare. Gentlemen, how are you both?
Well, thank you, Paul.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Great
Both
to be here.
Really good.
Both in warm Brizzy?
Yeah, it's not too bad today, actually.
Bit muggy, actually. Yeah.
So you guys are going into that next as well, into your muggy season.
Yeah, correct.
Hopefully all the people that moved up over the last year work out how bad it is.
How true is that? And that's probably, there's no doubt there's been a nice little spike in home prices over in Brisbane, and certainly there's a lot of people from Melbourne and Sydney that have definitely moved up, that's for sure. Now, guys, before we get into today, and we're gonna touch on some really cool topics today, and before I do that, maybe what I'll do is I'll ask you guys to maybe share a little bit about yourselves, maybe a quick 60 seconds. Adam, if you can go first, mate.
Sure. Bit of a boring career story, Paul. I started at O'Connells straight out of year 12 on a cadetship program. July 05 came into rectorship, and yeah, near 25 years on, still going strong. So needless to say, I've worn a number of different hats over that time and seen a hell of a lot of the change in our game, as well as driving a lot of change internally, including launching a couple of spin-off businesses just to help clients in complementary ways. So yeah, it's been a fantastic journey, and yeah, excited to be here to share some of my learnings, if you like, over that time.
Brilliant. And I think that's what we're looking to tap into today. There's a number of things where Adam's been able to grow his firm, and he's been doing it through the topics we're going to talk about very shortly. So we're going to break those down and give everyone some tips on the sorts of things you've done, you've tested, worked, what hasn't worked, and then we're going to break down a number of other key areas as well. But James, what about a quick 60 seconds on you, mate?
Yeah, sure. So I actually started as an engineer before starting. So I'm a bit of a fraud in this space, I guess, not an accountant. But I got into the productivity and automation space, and we began building software products. So that's kind of what we do. We built a software product for web designers, digital agencies 4 or 5 years ago, and it's actually been picked up a lot by accountants lately in like document collection and client onboarding. So it's basically a way to collect information from clients. But the other big thing, what I do is sort of help people get more productive and automate parts of their business.
Brilliant. And I think it's an interesting one, because the way that our industry has gone with the automation side, and I think earlier this year we heard that there's, for those of us that are using Xero, there's something like 800 different add-ons. It might have been one of you guys even mentioned that to me, but there's a lot of different add-ons now available, and I suppose it is there to create the automation and create our lives, as Michael Gerber used to call it, work smarter and not harder. And there's a lot of different little elements there that, sorry, I'm still letting people in here, that that we're going to work through. And I suppose, to be fair, again, whether it be Michael Gerber telling us about this, I don't know, probably 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, I suppose. These are the sorts of positives, I suppose, that, again, we're going to be sharing, whether it be efficiencies, inefficiencies. We're going to delve into the 8 wastes of lean as well, which I know both you guys want to share. And also, one of the key things, because I had the pleasure in talking to you guys as well in one of my Talking Numbers podcasts, and we spoke about how we're going to work through and how, as leaders, you guys also work to develop, let's call it a culture of constant improvement. And I think that's been again, think about that from a team point of view. And again, I might even kick off with that. So guys, just to everyone that's online, I'm pretty sure everyone is on mute, but I'd like this to be as interactive as possible as our virtual lunches are. So if you've got a question you'd like to ask Adam or James, please unmute yourself. Please ask a question. If you wanted to jump in there and put it in the chat as well. I know there's a couple of chats. Michael's saying it's a bit early for a wine in Brisbane. Really, Virgo? I know you, mate. Really. Anyway, we'll keep going. So yeah, look, you're more than happy to put it in the chat. We'll make it as collaborative as possible. That's probably the key from my point of view. So guys, let's kick off with the interesting conversation. Look, I'll start with people, because I know it's a topic that we've done, whether it be through our virtual lunches, whether it be our Chewing the Accounting Fat shows. We know, number one, people are hard to find. We know good people are even harder to find. So I want to talk about the importance of, and I'll call them systems and excellent systems. I know we're always looking to tweak our different systems, and probably, Adam, given the growth that you've had in your firm, let's start with efficiencies within systems. How do you identify efficiencies and how do you measure efficiencies within your firm?
Yeah. So to identify efficiencies, Paul, for us, it's really a matter of getting your hands dirty. And what I mean by that, you actually really need to put effort into it, make it a priority, and just focus on activities that uncover inefficiencies or just better ways of working. So to give you an example or a couple of examples, like a retro on a job, like once the job is complete, pausing and saying, well, what worked well, what didn't work well, what caused delays, were the rework, what was the cause of it? So really creating discussion around a job, how it flowed, through to reviewing tasks and processes on a periodic basis. Are they still the best way of doing things, or are there new tools that can assist us doing now what we need to do? So keeping certainly abreast of tech is a really important thing. And on my tech journey, that's where I've met James with Content Snare, because I see that's a really fantastic fit in addressing a particular pain point around information collation. But to people, I think it's also really important just to ask people what bugs them, like what's frustrating them, and asking them, well, when were you sitting there doing something a little monotonous or a little repetitive or whatever it might be, and you said, surely there's a better way, because those to me are the real nuggets, are the opportunities to shine the spotlight on, hey, there's something that's obviously the team's not enjoying doing, so perhaps there is an alternate way of doing it. And finally, I think another interesting exercise, which I challenge a lot of business leaders to do, is actually jump on the tools themselves and figure out what their systems are asking their team to do. Because if you experience the pain of the system, I think your motivation to address, or unpack those pain points can only be heightened. And that was something I did probably 8 years ago. And it was a really great exercise. Because we were effectively paying smart people to do dumb things, because that was the structure of our system at the time. So pausing and creating discussion is a really key part of this. So that to me is then to your second part of the question, like measuring efficiency. I think the most important measures are really measuring, are we doing the activities that drive more efficient outcomes? Are we doing the retros? Are we creating conversation around processes? Are we, identifying, right, in this next 90 days, which are the processes that we want to pause and challenge? So that to me is really important in terms of measuring efficiency. Just measure the drivers of the outcome you're seeking, as opposed to the lagging measures. And don't get me wrong, they're important, right? Revenue over resource, throughput, turnaround time, overrun, there's no shortage of them. They're indicators of efficiency, but to me, I think the most important measure is, are we doing what we say we're going to do to help move the needle in the right direction when it comes to ironing out efficiencies or identifying efficiencies?
Okay, brilliant. So how often would you do that? And you mentioned after, are you saying after every single job, and that's what you've brought
Correct.
into your whole business?
Yep. Every single job, there's a pause moment. We run to a bit of a checklist to make sure it's systemized, that approach itself. So we're gathering information, and then you're identifying trends, of course, as well in particular areas. So that's one way of approaching it. And then the other parts is, making it visible, right? So educating the team on the importance of identifying efficiencies, why that is the case for their own purpose, through to then, Slack channels to capture thoughts and ideas on the run, dedicated working on the firm days where we unpack processes and the like.
Okay, I just picked up, just so for firms that didn't pick up that one just then, you spoke about Slack channels. Do you want to talk about that? Just going off script for a second in terms of sharing how you may, and I suppose to all the firms in New South Wales, in Melbourne, maybe not as much in Brisbane, we've been working remotely. So you guys obviously use Slack.
Yes, we use Slack, great internal communication tool, but we have a number of different channels, and one of those channels is we call lean thinking, and I'll explain a little bit more about that soon. But that's where we sort of capture these nuggets of how about approaching this particular task this particular way, such that then when we get together on our all team day where we work on the business as opposed to just in it, we can review the suggestions and identify improvements and process changes to make from that channel. So it's live, it's dynamic. We encourage people to share their thoughts, as well as just even down to tips and tricks when it comes to training, software tools, shortcuts, whatever the case may be. The whole idea really is to increase the consciousness of the business around the importance of sharing little nuggets of how to approach something, or contributing to, I see this happening, and because I'm educated around different ways of thinking about, waste, and that's where we'll get to the 8 ways of 8 wastes of lean. Then we can start capturing these thoughts on the run.
Yeah, brilliant. Now, when you said channels, so I know I've used Slack before. The team are on there, and you're creating separate channels.
Subsets, yeah, that's right. So that's right. So we've got a sales channel, or a BD channel, an events channel, a newsletter channel, just different channels. So you can, in your own time, jump in and review whatever is in those channels.
Yeah, brilliant. James, anything you'd like to add to that, mate?
Yeah, I mean, Adam's done a bloody good job there, and I really like the idea of separate channels that you can kind of use as a checklist for meetings. So we have several channels, like one for our product and one for marketing and all that sort of stuff as well, and we've got one for process, and that basically just gets used as a dumping ground, so that when we do those review meetings, it's kind of just it's like our reference. We didn't need to take notes somewhere else. I find reducing friction for these kind of things is really important, because if they have to go to another app and then like find the document where you're writing these things down, it's not easy enough. You want to make it, every process is about reducing friction. And in this case, it's, everyone's on Slack, so they can open it up, open that channel, type the thing in, we'll come back to it later. They don't need to go and open some app and do it there. So that's why I'm a big fan of trying to do as much as possible in Slack, within reason, because of that low friction.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's everything sort of Adam's covered there is really good. One thing I would add is a big thing with like getting staff and people to suggest ways or things that are broken and suggest potential fixes is actually like training them in some way on what kind of things are possible. Because this, in my training, when I teach people automation, the biggest thing is always no one knows what's possible. No one knows where to start. So without any kind of knowledge about, what kind of things can be automated using, whether it's a tool like Zapier or, other existing tools, if you don't know what's out there, you just keep doing the process because you think it's the only way to do it. right? This is the biggest problem we have with Content Snare. You know, people just default to email to collect information from clients. They don't know there's a better way, right? It's just like, oh, well, it's the thing that we do in business because this is how you get information from people. It's by email. And it's the same, like I went through a process with a web designer who's across automation and, you know, productivity. This is getting a little bit advanced, but I showed him a little script that I built with just an automation with Zapier that's going to automate downloading all the images for our website transfer. And he's built websites hundreds of times in the past, but has never thought to automatically download images from URLs with a little automation. So that's the kind of thing. This is way down the track, right? I wouldn't expect a beginner in automation to work that out. But if you don't know that's possible, you'll just keep doing it the old way, which is go to every URL and download the image, right? So there is a level of training.
You're absolutely right, James. I think that's a really important point. You know, you don't know what you don't know, but I think the key thing is just helping your team members keep asking the questions. You know, and just because they might not be aware of it, what they do know is the pain or the frustration or the duplication that they see. And even if it's just flagged, it might not be there yet, but it can be put in the parking lot for, you know, when the tech eventually evolves. And, you know, that's why, you know, in terms of Content Snare, I see that as a perfect sort of fit for addressing the pain of getting information out of clients, because to your point, at best, the automation, it wasn't even automation, it was send the email request, hope that you then set a reminder for a couple of days time or a week's time to then go chase the client if you haven't seen anything, whereas that part now of the process is all automated through the tool that you've built. So yeah, it's really important, just I think, to be encouraging team to just pause, challenge anything and everything, because one day we might not have the answer today, but we're on, you know, we've got the trajectory to iron out things that just don't make sense.
And given both your experience with automation and obviously teams, and do you believe that also builds a better working environment?
Yeah, 100%. Because if you are out there actively asking your team to identify the pain points of the job that they're doing, and more importantly, acting on those, then surely that increases job satisfaction enormously, because we've taken a chunk of, you know, mind-numbing work off someone and made the computer do it, or whatever the case might be. I mean, I hark back to when I first started in the game, and this was, you know, cash books, right? And we would do manual journal entries out of a piece of A4, and you'd write your debits and credits out. And I think, well, why the hell am I doing this? Why don't I just put it in Excel, and then I can at least copy and paste every year the journal book, plus then use the smarts of adding it up. Just the simple things, right? That you want to be encouraging your team to just say, if that's a pain to you, what's a different way of approaching that particular task? And that's the exciting part now, I think, with where we're at with tech. The tech is here. It wasn't back there, you know, 25 years ago, but the tech has come so far in terms of being able to do what you do in a much smarter way. You know, it's that line of better, smarter, faster. Yes. You know, I mentioned one of those spin-off businesses, you know, FuseWorks, and that was developed, Fuse Docs, and some people may or may not be familiar with it, but it's essentially a document compilation tool. As I was on the tools at the back end of the job, trying to assemble a client report pack where you have a diagram, a structure of this software, your financials out of that, your tax return out of that, and manually printing to PDF, merging bookmark, you know, that was a awful thing to have to be sitting and doing. And that, again, that was the catalyst for surely there's a different way. Can we look at applying some different tech smarts to automate that process? So that's why I think it's the frustration that you really want to uncover, because, well, like I said, while the tech might not be there right now, at least we've got, you know, we've put our gun sights on, hey, this is an area that we want to improve. Team members don't get satisfaction in doing it, or it causes them a delay. Let's act on it.
Spot on. So given both exactly what we just said then, and for everyone that's listening right now, is it a matter of just bringing people together and then asking them, you know, like there'd be not many things that where tech is not involved with today's firm, whether we're using all the different tech stacks that are out there, and is that just the key thing? And saying, well, guys, if we're looking to automate, and fair to say anything that's tech-based can be automated, It's just a matter of getting their ideas and their feedback and getting them involved in a collaborative sort of manner.
Yeah, absolutely right, Paul. I think, from my side, it's three things. Making sure they're clear on what's important and why looking for change and efficiency is important. That they're clear on how they can help. So they've been educated on ways of thinking about what they do. And that's sort of talking to the 8 ways of lean. We'll get into that. The third part is then that reason to care factor. So there's an inherent reason to care with regards to us trying to relieve pain points in what they do. But it's also what do you encourage around that, whether that's team rewards, celebrations, if we set ourselves a little efficiency drive, right, let's review 20 processes and see if we can't, streamline them and get together at the end of the, quarter and celebrate success of, having transformed either a role or transformed a way of doing things. So I think we can, so long as the team have those three things or that's aligned, there's a natural reason to come together to talk about things, to your point.
Yes.
And that's the point of it, right? It's all around collaboration, making sure we're all aligned, we're all on the same page, we know why this is important, and we've got a reason to care about it.
Yeah, look, great points. And I think again, it's hard to believe we're sitting here and we're not that far away from Christmas. So the planning stages for everyone to sort of think about how they can start to look at this differently is probably a good thing. So Adam, how do you encourage that and make it tangible?
Yeah, so that sort of talks to that 8 ways of lean. So I think that's a really important reference point or framework for team members to just give them a lens to look at what they do. So it's a business philosophy that was championed by Toyota. And at its core, it's about continuous improvement. It's about respect for people. So there's a really good fit here in terms of what we've just spoken about. It's a way of thinking about an activity or a process and just seeing the waste inadvertently generated by it or the lack of value created by it. So that's it in a broad sense, the sort of concept of lean and lean thinking. Yes. But specifically, I like to sort of focus on the 8 ways of lean. So I might drill into that, and then having run through those, then we can perhaps circle back and talk to some examples, and particularly like from James's perspective, like why I think James with Content Snare is a great fit.
100%.
So the 8 ways of lean, and yes, you don't have to type notes. You can just simply Google this, and you'll get a much prettier picture than my face. But you've got talent, which is underutilizing people's talents, skills, and knowledge. There's inventory, where there's excess products and materials not being processed. You have motion, which is unnecessary movement by people, for example, walking around. Waiting, so wasted time waiting for the next step in the process. Transportation, so unnecessary movements of products and materials. Defects, so efforts caused by rework or scrapped or incorrect information. Overproduction, so producing something more that's needed or before it's needed. And then finally, over-processing, more work or a higher quality than required by customers. So with that framework, then it's, I mentioned this before, giving your team members a lens to look at what they do. Yeah. Or saying, okay, well, where did I wait? And I mentioned this the other day on the podcast. We had an example of if I want an ASIC historical extract, so I can understand, who is the directors and the shareholders of this particular company I'm looking at. What the process was me emailing our support team member. They would then go and buy that off the website and email the form back, right? So I was waiting in that process. Why was I waiting? Because we didn't actually make the firm credit card available for the team members to go and spend $20 in that moment when they're there, heads loaded, I'm in this space, I need this to do. So that's a really simple example of where if the team, where am I waiting? What caused me waiting? And now what can we do to change that and collapse that time to make it more
And then
efficient.
You're also spending your valuable time doing something pretty menial, like paying for something. Yeah. Which is another, like that's the underutilizing talent waste in the same, same.
That's right. Because, you're waiting either to give instruction for it to come back, or you're just there in the moment and then pressing the go button. So, it's anything and everything really, but it's all around like identifying or arming the team with where are we going astray? Where are we creating waste, and how do we overcome it? And then to Content Snare, if you think about the waste of an information request process, there's the waiting, obviously, when we send it to when the client gets it and gives it back to us. If it's not in the form that we want, so clients might send back paper, then we're going to have to, use some motion, walk into the scanner to scan it in, whatever the case might be. Quite often they send us a hell of a lot more information than what actually we need, so we can get tightened up on that inventory sort of concept or aspect,
Yep.
So look, I'm not a manufacturer, and I'm not an expert in this space, but all that is just principles, right? That you can sort of get to and help the team identify, hey, we're seeing a lot of this. What's an alternate way of doing it?
Yeah, all that, I kind of was going to say that before, where all of these wastes obviously get their roots in manufacturing and physical products, but every single one of them apply to an office environment as well. Things like over processing and producing a higher quality item, that's also applies to doing too much work, like deliverables.
That's right. And look, accountants are notorious for file notes, or walking into a client meeting with a whole lot of scripted sort of detail that you'll never talk to with a client, whereas a couple of bullet points is another way. Even just typing as opposed to dictating file notes, another example. There really is no shortage of different ways, and a classic, right? When it comes to accountants, emailing rather than just pick up the phone. It's a much more dynamic conversation. You can probably get the answer rather than bounce an email back and forth. So it's just helping team members pause and understand some key principles that they can then apply to how they approach their work.
So with that framework, and how long have you been using this for?
This has been 2 years in the making, this type of framework, this way of thinking. Yeah.
And what have been some of the, let's call them major outcomes that you've seen that, again, tangible, that you can talk about?
Yeah. Look, there's probably no major ones. It's just small ones. They all add up. They all add up. From, you've got big ones like Fuse Docs, you've got bigger ones now like Content Snare, you've got the little ones like the historical extract, you've got other examples of default double-sided printing across the organization as opposed to single page. You've got team members all on the Uber business account rather than have to then pay on their credit card, send the receipt, so it's just a number that accumulate over time, Paul, and that's what you want. This whole journey should be evolution, not revolution. It's an everyday thing. It's like, guys, we're talking about this, we're wanting to understand how we can do what we do better, because if we can do things smarter, it gives us back the most valuable thing, and that's time. And then it's a choice then of how we redirect that time. For us, with the capacity we've created in the business over the years with smarter ways of doing things, whether that's, journal entries that get pushed directly into our accounting software, through the Fuse Doc compilation, you name it. For us, we've been able to create capacity. I think that's a really valuable thing, because in the absence of that, people are just running around and not doing the most important thing, which is working on the business. So our day out a month, that's a really key part of helping us develop new services, develop new processes, address different processes, just come together as a team and work on the business. So that's why I think efficiency is a must, to give us back that time to then reinvest appropriately to make sure we're future-proof.
And I think we can sometimes, there's no doubt, with the, we talk about tech and the amount of apps that are out there to help us. There's no doubt that's helped, but I think the ability to consistently review that, I'm going to come back to your day a month that you just spoke about, and review that to make sure it is being efficient, or has it been inefficient? And how are you going to continually tweak that? Because nowadays you think about weeks and months just fly past, and before you know it, we're at the end of the calendar year. And it's like, well, so how do you go about that? Just sharing with everybody. You just spoke about that day of the month.
The day. Yeah, the day is really important to us, because in the absence of the day, then you won't do it.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Like, I think you can unless you're putting time in the diary and making it, back to my earlier comment about making this a priority, getting your hands dirty, getting off the tools and talking to the team and, you know, picking their brain and helping them, you know, connect to the business, because, you know, that's really important from their job perspective as well, that they're more than, you know, that they're seen to be part of something. And that's a very important part of all of this, that we come together, we work together, but we've prioritized that time. And I think we kid ourselves that we can do that on the run. You know, we've gone through periods where, well, we'll just dedicate this afternoon to this particular thing, and we'll do it every week. So we might do service development this week, next week is process, the next week might be something else. But it never happens, because, you know, an afternoon is always an afterthought, because, you know, so it doesn't work. So that's why the day to us is just I'm walking in today, I've got my working on the business hat on, and yeah, we're all here thinking about the same thing.
And you just do you just simply run through the talent, inventory, motion, waiting, transport, defects?
Yeah, that's part of it. That's right. But we've got a standing agenda where we obviously just talk about firm matters. There's a whiteboard in our collaborative space where people just co-create the agenda for the day, where they just write up ideas over the course of the month. But yes, to your point, then looking over the lean channel of the Slack, what ideas have come through, you know, over the course of the month? What do we want to unpack? What are some pains or frustrations we're feeling? You know, just keep the conversation going. And it's just this, you know, continuous loop. You never get it right, or you can get it right, but you just need to keep talking about it.
Correct. Keep talking about it and keep, keep identifying. And
identifying, keep experimenting.
So you've got a whiteboard that people can just write up.
Yep. Yeah, different areas. So it's got service ideas, business ideas, process ideas, training ideas. So just over the course of a month, people will jot things in, and we just unpack that.
Brilliant. Sorry, James, were you going to say something?
Yeah, and I was just going to that time blocking is essentially, that's the name for what Adam's doing there. And, you know, I personally block out a couple of hours every Thursday to work on, you know, just process improvement / automation. And, you know, because if you don't block that out, you will fill it up with other things. You absolutely have to block out time for any continuous improvement like this. It's got to be part of your calendar. It's like non-negotiable. And just another thing I wanted to add before, because you asked about actual numbers, and, you know, Adam said it's all these like small things that add up. There's no large things. And that is 100% the case. And I've done some maths recently, and this is just, you know, one product that we use, people might be familiar with, called Zapier. And, you know, over the time, we've created like small automations with that, right? That might automate moving a contact from one place to another, or I don't know, just when certain things happen in our business, it might automatically move data from one place to another. Now, if you look at how many tasks, it keeps track of how many tasks run in our account each month. And I did some rough maths on that, assuming about 30 seconds of work each task, it added up to about 120 hours of work, just this one product and the stuff it's automating, right? I kind of just wanted to say that to highlight that's how all these things add up. You know, if it is a person saving a couple of minutes here and there, a couple of minutes doesn't sound like a lot, but when you've got this happening in so many different places, it adds up so fast.
Yeah.
It very rarely is just one major thing that fixes, you know, saves you suddenly 50 hours a week or something. It's, you know, it's lots of little bits.
That's right, James. And I mean, we saw that particularly in our support role, where, you know, it was basically a day, 1.5 full-time equivalent to now effectively being half a full-time equivalent role.
Boom.
And that just sneaks up on you, you know, of going on like for implementing different tools and ways of doing things over a 2-year period. All of a sudden, you know, that can be the outcome. It's quite incredible.
Now, James, you spoke about automation. So for people that are listening, maybe what are some of the most common, and probably Adam can talk about this as well within the firm, what are some of the most common things that can be automated?
Yeah, so Adam's probably better at describing things specific for accounting, but you know, geez, the easiest way for people to get started is go to a tool like Zapier. I find it's and this is, so Zapier is a very specific automation tool that I could talk for hours just about it, right? At its core, it's when this happens, do this. So when someone fills out my contact form, put them in my CRM, or when someone clicks a link in an email, put in a task for me to call them because it meant they're interested in that thing, right? So that's kind of what automation is in general. But I would recommend people just go to Zapier.com, go to the, I can't remember the tab name now, I think it's Explore or something. And you can just start typing in apps that you're already using in your business, and it'll just spit out ideas of like things that you can connect. So, you know, that's a specific, you know, Zapier is a specific tool. There are other ones like Integromat. It's a bit harder to use. I always recommend people start with the Zapier because the UI is a bit easier, and you know, you don't need such a big knowledge of how these things work to get started like you do with Integromat. You can also Google Zapier tutorial and look for jimmyrose.me. That's me, and you'll find find my stuff there somewhere. But yeah, I mean, but a lot of automation actually comes from specific products. Like obviously Content Snare helps automate the data collection, information collection from clients. You know, Xero has automation stuff in it now. Like remember when you didn't have automatic bank feeds to reconcile things, you know, there's like features of products are, you know, that's usually why they create a feature, is to automate something else, right? So Adam, you could probably speak better to some automated.
Yeah, look, you're absolutely right, James. You know, the software themselves do, you know, a fantastic job in their niche. You know, and I think we have to be very careful of ending up with, you know, a really massive tech stack. But you know, I think the key thing is just to understand which of the particular areas that we see a lot of waste in, and then what's the right way to address that waste. So to me, Content Snare really addresses that wasteful exercise of info gathering. FuseDocs addresses the wasteful exercise of document compilation. Some people may be aware that FuseSign, a recently launched product as well, that helps automate digital signing process, you know, to what that was many years ago when we were printing everything out, sticking the labels on, right? Yeah. You're just looking at ways that, or work that's being done, and is there now an alternate solution? Even to the likes of practice and condition when it comes to billing, or engaging clients on a fixed price proposal, you know, CAS 360 and ACIS with their integrations, you know, and that's the exciting part. The integrations are fantastic nowadays to order a company from your preferred sort of company supplier, and that data just get pushed straight into where you need it, rather than again, and that's where you can see why a support role has gone from 1.5 time equivalent down to half. You know, there's a lot of that work that's now done seamlessly.
Brilliant. And hopefully, again, we'll open up to questions very shortly. But one of the other things I just want to quickly cover, and most of us on the line are probably firms, directors, partners. So from a leadership point of view, how important is it to continuous that, and you spoke about it before, that continuous improvement across the business? Can maybe you guys share a little bit about that in terms of, again, how important is it to have that constant improvement mindset?
I think you mentioned at the start, Paul, you know, working smarter, not harder. Agree completely. I think there's another mantra that we need to sort of be very conscious of, and that's sort of doing more with less, particularly in this very tight talent market. So if we can embrace ways of working where we can actually do more with less and not asking our people to work any harder for it, then I think that's the ideal. Because then at least we're in a position to keep growing without necessarily needing to just keep feeding the beast as once it was upon a time. But obviously they get to a point where you still need to do recruit and grow. But I think that's not a bad starting point, or not a bad mindset to then say, well, how do we achieve doing more with less? Well, that's got to be doing things in a smarter way, which is continuous improvement, which is why we need to keep challenging things, and away you go.
Yeah, and continuous improvement is also important for the reasons you spoke about before with, you know, staff, because no one likes doing rubbish, you know, menial work. And so if you can, you know, fix those kind of fix those processes so they can do more meaningful work. And as well, you know, if they are contributing to that process of continual improvement, they're going to feel more valued. There's more buy-in for the processes they create. They're going to see their name on things that are created. You know, it's such a better work environment when you have that process.
Agree.
And mindset. Yeah.
Very, very true. And look, it's a something that I suppose, as you know, there's all new. We go back 20 years ago to some of the stuff we just mentioned, Gerbo, whether it be you've done sort of Robbins and constant never-ending improvement, you know. So there's all sorts of different things that we've learned along the way. And I suppose to all you guys online as well, to have that mindset is probably what both Adam and James just mentioned. It's probably the most important thing, because we started talking about people, but that's where a lot of the improvement and the collaboration, and people will leave because other firms are doing it and your firm's not. So even think about those sorts of things, which are really, really important. Guys, I'm going to just open up the lines if you don't mind. We're getting to 12:43. I can't believe how quick that's gone, but feels like we only started talking 5 minutes ago. If anyone's got any questions, I'm more than happy to. You can throw them into the Q&A, or you can throw. Is the Q&A there? I can't even see it. You can throw it into the chat. And don't know what's happened to the Q&A. It's disappeared from Zoom. But happy for you to unmute your lines and ask a question directly to Adam and James as well. Anyone?
Not all at once.
So there's been a bit of the chat go on there.
Yeah.
Thanks, James. You've been throwing some stuff in there in terms of the 8 wastes of lean, to Google that, and there's some links in there. So please feel free to go to that. Yep, Zapier, Zapier.com.
Yeah, that's the one. And I guess one thing I'd like to, well, if we're waiting for some questions, one thing that's kind of like talking about with Zapier is I've noticed this, especially in the accounting industry, a lot of people really rely on built-in integrations. So it's like, yeah, Practice, Ignition have this integration with Xero, whatever. Like, obviously that's going to be a really good integration because those two are so tight. But, maybe when someone signs a engagement letter, you want to put them in a different CRM, and they might have a direct integration, but it doesn't do exactly what you want. When you're capable with using tools like Zapier, you can essentially build the integrations you want, the way you want them to work, which I think is massive that a lot of people miss out on. So many people I talk to are just like, oh, X doesn't integrate with Y directly, therefore I don't want it. Yeah, it's easier to use a built-in integration, but when you've got when you can build your own in the exact way you want it, it's so much more powerful, and that's why I talk about Zapier a lot.
Brilliant. I saw a hand go up. Ricardo, mate.
G'day, guys. Thanks for that presentation. How are you? I was just wondering, how do you guys know what new softwares are around? Like Zapier, obviously, you guys have found somewhere. How do you know what you're missing out on?
Good question.
People.
I have the advantage of having an affiliated business that's in the accounting tech space, FuseWorks. So I get to hear of the latest and greatest via them. But going to tech exhibitions, Charter Magazine has whatever they call it now, Acuity, has sort of the latest and greatest. So yeah, it's really just eyes and ears to the ground, and talking to other fellow practitioners, I think, is a really important part as well, because we all have the same pains at times. So yeah, just understanding how they are approaching is a good thing too.
Yeah, so talking and asking questions, like social media is amazing for this kind of stuff. Like, if I want a solution to something, I put a post up and ask on a couple of things, and I get different answers from different channels, and that's one way. But also just following the right people, obviously newsletters can be a massive productivity suck, but little trick for you, if you do something like, if you're on Google, and I'm pretty sure 365 do this with their email, if you go like your name, like Ricardo plus newsletters at yourdomain.com, so Google and 365 will ignore that plus bit. So it'll still come to you directly, but it allows you to set up filters. Like if plus newsletters is in the to address, put it in this newsletter folder that I'm not going to check. Basically, the trick here is setting up filters. So all the newsletters just go into some folder that doesn't clog up your inbox. And then when you're ready, maybe you have an hour a week or half an hour a week where you just scan through there. And, if you're subscribing to people that share cool tech stuff, it's all in there ready for you to just scan through. That's what I do. I have like a dedicated learning section of my week on Fridays, because usually I'm just fairly chill on Fridays. I don't feel like doing heavy work, so a lot of it's learning. And it is, some of that might be following people on Twitter. Like accounting Twitter is huge. The amount of people sharing cool stuff on Twitter, mind-blowing. I agree. Yeah, LinkedIn. Sorry, Paul?
I agree. I actually can't believe the amount of accounting content on Twitter, and it was sort of a bit of a platform that was probably forgotten about. it's made a resurgence, maybe with the accounting industry.
100%. I just saw someone said, get your Gen Zs onto it.
So true, Malcolm, so true.
There was a question for Adam there. How long did it take to get your staff
on board with this way of thinking?
Yeah.
Look, so look, not long at all. And the reason being is that we embrace a way of running the business where our employees think and act like owners. We run an open book management philosophy. So a number of them have equity in the practice. We have incentives that are designed around, talking to some of the points that we've spoken about. So there's a natural alignment there for them to embrace this way of thinking. And that's the best part for me, so it's not, as the leader, you're sort of introducing, this is where we need to be. And then to ensure that the team can keep delivering on it is the most important part of all this. So yeah, it's a great alignment.
Brilliant. And there was another question here as well in terms of, is there a community group that we can join and discuss topics with firms and share tips and tricks? That was from Pamela. So is there anyone that you're directly aligned with, I suppose, Adam or James?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the FuseWork team sort of keep me abreast of what they're aware of in the marketplace, which works well for me. But I think we've just spoken, Twitter, LinkedIn, there's no shortage of things out there. A specific community I'm not aware of, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
No, I agree. And probably if anything, fingers crossed we can get back to things like conferences next year.
Yeah.
We haven't been able to socialize. We haven't been able to get out and do the big zero cons which most people, or other sort of conferences that big companies would run, where you would get to share and collaborate and, go and visit all the different areas. But yeah, look, I think the other thing is jumped on LinkedIn and just follow those companies, as sort of James just mentioned. It's let the content come to you again, instead of going searching for it. Let it come to you into your inbox, and you can filter through what you want to look at.
And Pamela, I would say, Facebook groups are definitely the most active ones I see. Most LinkedIn groups are kind of spam town at this point. I don't know if there are any good ones left, but I'm not in any. Obviously not everyone's a fan of Facebook groups, but that's pretty much all I use Facebook for now. So, and now I'm in a couple for accountants that are quite active. I don't know, are we cool to talk about them here? I think the Small Business Accountants and Advisors Brain Trust Australia by Susan. I'm not even going to try to pronounce her last name. And I think there's Heather Smith's group, but I can't remember what that's called. Is it Zero Mastermind group? Like, that's obviously pretty tech heavy. So definitely worth checking those out.
I agree. It's probably worth checking those out. And again, depending whether you've got Facebook and whether you're using it and how you're using it. I think Facebook have got some of those groups. And look, it's maybe even an opportunity for even us to even open one up through professional partners and get people to share information and linking that through. So it's probably something I'll take into consideration as well, in terms of how we can improve what we're currently doing as well. So
sounds like your 2022 plan right there.
That's it. Well, gentlemen, it's gone 12:51, and thank you. There's a few comments coming through. Good idea, Paul. Thank you. Thanks, Malcolm. Yeah, look, again, great comments, great thoughts. Again, tap into these guys if you want to know more information. I think even sort of Adam just mentioned FuseDocs there. Go and sort of follow, FuseWorks. Go and follow FuseWorks as well. And there's a lot of information that you can get from a lot of these sort of companies that, again, can just target those certain areas you want to look at. I think the 8 wastes of lean are important for you to sort of review and look at and say, what are the consistent areas? And more importantly, what Adam just mentioned before as well, in just getting the team together, block out that day a month and making sure you are actually talking about this, and let the team set their own agenda up. I love all of that, which you've done there, mate. Obviously, it's allowed you to do what you're doing now.
Yes.
Which is important. Yeah. You spend probably a lot more time working on the business, which is brilliant. Adam,
that's the fun part.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. We used to hear that all the time. And to be fair, we used to hear that 20 years ago as well. So, but this is, again, another opportunity for everyone online just to start doing something different. So thank you, Grace. To everyone that's joined us today, thank you for joining us. To our special guests, Adam, James, thank you very much. Guys, if you're online, if you're still online, our next Chewing the Accounting Fat show, for those of you that joined us last month, so we've had some interesting feedback. We've had some polls. We were talking about mastering advisory. So it's an area where some people struggle with, some people weren't sure how to start the conversation, some people weren't how to price it. What we're going to talk about, I'm bringing the 3 guys back from the panel based on the feedback, and I'm bringing them back for the next show. So you'll have an invitation in your inbox very soon. It's on the 18th of November. And we're going to talk about how we can display the value to clients. And with all the feedback and the polls we ran, there was the highest percentage of firms that struggled to display the value. They've got no problems in doing it with compliance work, but struggled with advisory work. So we're going to go into a fair bit of detail about that. So look out for that invite as well. That's our next Chewing the Accounting Fat show. To the rest of you, if I don't see you, as ridiculous as it sounds, have a wonderful Christmas. Some people have already knocked off. A lot of people say, after Melbourne Cup Day, I'm out. Hopefully you're not. I know you guys are very busy, but yeah, to Adam and James, thanks for joining us today. And to the rest of you, have a wonderful rest of the week. And hopefully I'll see you at on the 18th for our next Chewing the Accounting Fat show. Thank you. And
Thanks, Paul.
thanks,
Cheers.
Adam. Thanks, James.
Bye-bye. Cheers. Bye-bye.